but she had to know that everything changed after meeting Do-hook. Before, she had been cold and distant, like a hedgehog with sharp quills. But after meeting his cousin, she felt so comfortable and, for the first time, truly happy. For Yu, it felt like everything had been a lie. She couldn't understand what was real. She was torn, feeling resentment toward him, but beyond that, she loved him with all her heart. From that moment, she didn't know what to do. She had no one to tell about her return to the past, so she kept it to herself. When she went to work, she focused solely on that and tried to avoid Do-hook. She wasn't ready to face him. Soon, Do-hook left on a business trip, which made things easier for her. But one night at a company dinner, Do-hook showed up, as expected, and sat next to his wife. But next to Yu was also the annoying Dea, who, using the excuse that she was drunk, splashed water on Yu. Do-hook quickly tried to help her, but the foolish Dea grabbed his hand, which infuriated Yu. A little later, Dea was gossiping with her co-workers, mocking Yu, the supposed CEO's wife. They knew the two didn't care for each other based on how they acted. Yu overheard everything and decided to defend herself, saying, "I only came because I'm also an employee of this company. But now I understand why you're uncomfortable. Could it be because Miss Dea is interested in my husband?" Yu didn't hesitate to point out that she had seen Dea holding her husband's hand and had been harassing him for some time. Dea asked if Yu had any proof, and just then Do-hook came to defend his wife. Yu warned Dea to be more careful with her words from now on. With that, Dea and her little friends ran off. Following this, Yu wanted to talk with Do-hook. They went to a park and Yu told him that she had been reflecting on everything. She knew that he had known the truth from the beginning, and yet he had deceived her. She had tried to focus on the good, but to her, not everything felt real, and it hurt. But what hurt her the most was that despite everything, she still loved him. At that moment, Do-hook embraced her and apologized. Yu could no longer silence her heart. She loved him. She had fallen for him and clung to the hope that he felt the same. After talking, they kissed, and Do-hook confessed his love for her as well. Moments later, Yu mentioned that if the dates on their bracelets marked the end of their lives, she didn't want to waste a single minute. Do-hook wanted the same, although he knew this time they wouldn't die. He would make sure of it. And from that day, the two lovebirds reconciled. The next day, Sumi mentioned to Yu that it seemed like the cockroach was going to resign from his job. Soon after, Yu's phone rang. It was Zin, wanting to share something urgent. Meanwhile, Do-hook was in a meeting. It seemed they had captured the person who delivered those photos, but the person had no idea what they were handing over, so they still didn't know who was truly behind it. For H, the most likely suspects were Yu's family. To his father, it was strange. Why would they do this to someone who, even though they aren't related by blood, had lived with them for so many years? But based on past events, they knew Yu's family wasn't loving. Just then, Yuk entered the room. He had overheard the entire conversation and showed them what had been sent to his phone today. He had investigated and discovered it was from someone Yu had been close to since the orphanage. Do-hook mentioned that the person was the secretary of Yu's grandfather. However, Duke added that he had heard Yu's sister-in-law had germophobia and couldn't eat anything other people gave her. He blamed Do-hook for marrying someone so problematic, but his father quickly put him in his place. Even if it hurt, Yu was now part of their family, and they had to protect her. Meanwhile, Yu was waiting for Sujin. As she spoke with Juon, she mentioned the recent photos of the two of them that had been delivered, which meant they wouldn't be able to see each other for a while. However, she asked him to keep an eye on her grandfather and, once and for all, get information about Yura's biological father. At that moment, Sujin arrived, happy to hear that Yu and her cousin had reconciled. Yu then asked Sujin for a favor, to investigate more about Hyunjeli, an employee of her family's gallery who had disappeared years ago. Zin agreed, but she had actually come to share information about Jin. She revealed that Jin had gotten married 15 years ago in the United States, was widowed, and inherited a large fortune. Jin had returned to Korea and used that money to start her cooking classes, but there was no further information about her. Meanwhile, Do-hook visited Jermai's cats, the ones descended from the cat Do-hook had rescued in the past. Thanks to Jeme, the cats were now well cared for, and Do-hook felt at ease. He told Jeme that he wanted to ask a favor. He wanted to learn more about Jeongjeli, the director of the Raon Art Gallery. He knew she was the one with the most power. Do-hook also mentioned that Yu wanted the company, and he planned to make her the owner. He hoped Jaime would help, and Jaime knew there would be no problem. To gain full control, the major shareholder, Yu's grandfather, had to return, and she knew he would support Yu without hesitation. The next day, the cockroach met with Yura. He showed her the photos he had obtained through an agency and told her that he had sent them to President Sei, Gyo-hook, and Do-hook. Sek then asked if Yura had sent Sei to post lies on his profile. Of course, Yura denied any involvement. The cockroach became furious, asking why Yura was so obsessed with the situation. Do-hook knew that doing this would hurt her even more, but Yura was showing just how crazy she was. She told him that all she wanted was to see Do-hook and Yu miserable because it wasn't fair. She had planned to marry Do-hook, but Yu had taken him as revenge. Yura claimed she had never hurt Yu, but Seok knew better. He knew that Yu had spent her entire life enduring abuse and discrimination. Yura then asked Seok that if they found her, he should turn himself in on her behalf. But when Seok refused, Yura added that if he helped her, she would hire a lawyer for his sister. For this one time, she needed his help. In the days that followed, Do-hook went to find his wife at work because they had to go out together. They had a family dinner. When they arrived, everyone was happy to see Yu, especially since the rumors about her had calmed down. However, Do-hook was furious because she knew who had caused this scandal, Yura, a horrible person. But thanks to everyone's support, things were fine. Yu's father mentioned that he had prepared food for her and asked if she could eat it. Now that Yu was recovering, she could, and she happily showed everyone, which made them all excited. But before anything else, Yu had something to share. Just then, Gyo-hook arrived, and he wasn't alone. He had brought Yura with him. Clearly, no one liked this woman, especially Donya, but they couldn't just kick her out, so they quickly sat down at the table. Gyo and Yura weren't asking for permission for a wedding just yet. They were just getting to know the family. Moreover, since Yu was adopted, there was nothing wrong with dating her sister-in-law, Gyo insinuated. This infuriated everyone, but Yu didn't care. She knew the truth, and when everyone found out, Yura would suffer. As Yu was about to eat, Yura expected her to embarrass herself. However, Juk asked about her condition, and Yu took the opportunity to tell everyone that when she was young, she fainted after eating food laced with arsenic. She had nearly died and from that day couldn't eat anything given to her by others. This was a surprise to many, and Yura quickly said, "It wasn't my mother," but Yu added, "Now I'm fine. I've overcome it, thanks to Do-hook." Everyone was thrilled, happy that Yu was now doing better. Seeing how much the family treasured Yu enraged Yura, as she had won the love of the entire family. Later, Yura met with the cockroach and was furious to see that Yu had been accepted by Korea's most prominent family. She blamed Sok, thinking that if he had married her, none of this would have happened. In her frustration, Yura mentioned that the suspicions about a contractual marriage might be true, as Gur believed it too. This angered the cockroach. He told her that she would never be able to destroy Yu and was only hurting herself by trusting the wrong people, but Yura didn't want to give up and asked Sok to bring her proof that what he said was true. In the following days, Yu visited her grandfather. She now understood that he hadn't died because of Hon-jae, as he was still in good health. During the visit, her grandfather mentioned that his birthday was coming up and asked what she wanted as a gift. It was amusing because Yu knew her real birthday, but since he was asking, she said she wanted the retail company, and her grandfather agreed. The day before her birthday, she returned home. While talking to Do-hook, Yu shared that her birthday was simply the day she had been abandoned at the orphanage. She didn't even know when she was truly born. For that reason, the day wasn't significant to her. But Do-hook hugged her and told her that, for him, it would be the first birthday they spent together. He promised that from now on, every year they would have more happy moments like this. After some time, they arrived at her in-laws' house, where everyone welcomed Yu with joy. They were all so happy because tomorrow was her birthday, and they had prepared everything just for her. A grand dinner, a beautiful cake, and each of them sang for her, allowing her to blow out her candle. When it was time for presents, she was given 2 extravagant options: a 50-story building or an automobile factory. Yu started to cry, feeling overwhelmed by how much they were giving her. But her mother-in-law reassured her that she deserved this and much more, because she was now part of the family. As they returned home, Yu felt conflicted, like she was taking advantage of their generosity. She couldn't bring herself to refuse her family's gifts, but to Do-hook, money was the least important thing. He told her he could buy her whatever she desired. As they neared their home, Yu noticed the cockroach, Seok, making a phone call, and soon her phone started vibrating. But, of course, she knew that her phone was breaking, and she understood that he had come to see her. She asked Do-hook to drop her off nearby, assuring him she would get home soon. Respecting her decision, Do-hook agreed. Yura approached Seok, who, like a fool, had once again been manipulated by Yura. He became aggressive, asking if she still loved him. He insisted that he knew she was only with Do-hook because of a contract. He pressed her repeatedly, but Yura didn't hesitate to tell him that it was a lie. She loved Do-hook. Seok couldn't accept the truth, so Yura slapped him, telling him she didn't want anything more to do with him and that he should leave. Seok, enraged, grabbed her and tried to hit her, blaming her for all of his misfortunes. At that moment, Do-hook arrived and struck Seok, making it clear that he wouldn't allow anyone to harm Yu, least of all him. Do-hook warned Seok not to come near his wife again. After several minutes, they finally made it home, but Do-hook was upset with Yu for trying to handle everything on her own. She had almost been hurt, and Yu apologized, explaining that she hadn't wanted him to have to deal with Seok, and she hadn't expected Seok to react that way. But Do-hook just wanted to protect her, because he couldn't bear the thought of losing her again. Yu reassured him that none of them would die this time. Soon midnight struck, and it was officially Yu's birthday. After sleeping and waking up, Yu knew she had 1 year until the marked date. But when she stepped out of her room, she found, with great excitement, Do-hook had prepared something extraordinary for her. A wonderful feast, just as she had always wished. And that was just the beginning. Later, they boarded a helicopter, and though Yu wanted to know where they were going, Do-hook kept it a surprise. Soon, they arrived at their destination, an amusement park. Do-hook had everything planned out because, from now on, he wanted everything to be real. He pulled out an engagement ring and proposed to her officially. Before she could even answer, the ring was already on her finger, but that didn't take away from how special the moment was for both of them. Afterward, they walked over to a tree filled with photographs of her, and even some costume performers arrived to celebrate. One of them handed her a letter from Do-hook. In the letter, he confessed that from the moment he first saw her, he had fallen in love. But it was the act of going back in time that allowed him to truly be with her. In the beginning, he felt guilty for deceiving her, but simply being by her side made him happy. He asked her to let go of the painful memories and focus on creating joyful moments from now on, as he loved her with all his heart. After this heartfelt surprise, Do-hook took her on various rides. She enjoyed them, while he got scared. By the end, he was exhausted, but there was still more to come. Later, he brought her to a boutique and asked her to choose a beautiful, elegant dress, because they were going to have dinner at a luxurious restaurant she had always dreamed of visiting. Astonishingly, Do-hook had reserved the entire place, so they were alone, dining in the finest setting possible. As he snapped his fingers, fireworks filled the sky outside the window, creating a perfect moment for Yu. But Do-hook had one last surprise. There's still something left, our first night together. Oh, how forward of him. Yet it was something Yu had also been longing for. When the time came, she was ready to give herself to him, making this birthday unforgettable, as it became their first night together. And so it happened. Afterward, they talked, and Yu shared that she had never experienced a birthday like this. All her life, Yura had been the one celebrated, while she never received anything from anyone. Today was different, and she thanked Do-hook for making it so special. She loved him deeply, and he loved her just as much. But then Yu revealed something shocking. She was the true daughter of Hunun Han, the president of the retail company. She didn't know if it was fate or how it all came to be, but she had been adopted by another man, while Yura, who wasn't even her father's biological daughter, received all the love and privilege. Do-hook hugged her and asked, "How long have you known?" Yu confessed she had only discovered it recently, after everything that rightfully belonged to her had been taken away. But now, she wasn't going to let that happen again. She was determined to reclaim what was hers, and Do-hook promised to stand by her side in this fight. He would use everything at his disposal to help her achieve what she deserved. After months of hard work, the project for the new video game that Yu was part of finally came to an end, and her contract had finished. Though she would miss it, especially being close to Sumi, she was ready to move on. While Do-hook and Yu were on their way home, Yu asked him to drop her off at her parents' house because it was her father's birthday. She had been preparing his gift for a long time, so Do-hook agreed to wait for her at home. Meanwhile, Yu's family was having lunch, celebrating her father's birthday. But soon, an unwelcome guest arrived. Yura. She had come to wish her father well. As her stepmother knew Yu had struggled with eating food served by others, she was surprised to see her eating with no hesitation, announcing to everyone that she was cured. In addition to that, Yu had brought a gift for her father. Johnny knew what was inside that envelope. It likely contained the blood test results that Yu had shown her before. However, since they were in the middle of eating, Yu's father didn't open it right away. Yura began to irritate Yu by bringing up her marriage, but Yu stayed calm and looked happy, which only infuriated Yura. Unable to handle being around Yu, Yura stormed out. At this moment, Yu's father wanted to check the documents in the envelope, but Johnny tried to stop him. In the struggle, the envelope tore and a piece of paper landed in her father's hands, just the crucial part revealing that both Yu and Yura were his biological daughters. Yu wanted him to realize the truth, that she too was his biological daughter. Johnny, however, thought the document might state that Yura wasn't his daughter, so she tried to dismiss the results, saying that it might not be real. Yu, keeping her composure, asked her father that if he didn't trust the documents, he could have the test done himself. Before leaving, Yu made a request. Since she hadn't yet received a birthday present from him, she asked her father to give her the position of manager as her gift. As she left, she felt drained from the whole ordeal. But as she stepped outside, she saw Do-hook waiting for her, not wanting her to be alone. Yu broke down in tears, telling him how her father had never treated her like a real daughter. And now she didn't know what would happen once the truth came out. In the following days, Yu's plan continued. With the help of Donna and Jin, they began organizing the retail company's papers to uncover the reasons behind the financial deficit. At the upcoming shareholders' meeting, they planned to accuse her father of mismanaging the company, and Johnny would intervene. In the midst of all this, Yu received a video. Footage from the last time she saw the cockroach, Sok, showing Do-hook hitting him. Yu immediately called Yura, realizing she was behind this and was now threatening her. Yura threatened Yu by saying that she would send the video to the press unless Yu divorced Do-hook and returned to her old life. Yura insisted that, as an adopted child, Yu didn't deserve her current position, and if she didn't comply, Yura would ruin her life. But Yu no longer cared, seeing Yura as the real outsider. In fact, since Yura gave her this gift, Yu planned to give her one in return. Meanwhile, Yu's father wasn't sure if it was true that Yu was really his daughter. At that moment, Johnny arrived and planted seeds of doubt, claiming that Yu was only trying to take advantage of him. Johnny suggested that, with the power Yu now had, she could have manipulated the test results just to get the manager's position. Unsure of what to believe, Yu's father hesitated. Then Johnny handed him a cup of tea, and after drinking it, he began to feel unwell and fainted. With this, Johnny's plan began to unfold. Elsewhere, after everything that had happened, Yu decided to meet with Yura. Laughing in her face, Yu told her that even though she was now divorced from Do-hook, Yura would never succeed in being with him. Yu then showed Yura a recording in which she confessed to sending the incriminating photos to Do-hook's father, as well as her obsession with Do-hook and her desire to make Yu miserable. Yu explained that she had withdrawn Seok's sister's lawsuit, and in exchange, Seok had given her this recording, while Yura had only offered Seok a lawyer. Yu clarified that there was no contractual marriage between her and Do-hook. They truly loved each other. And even if Yura did release the video, the Jian group would stop it instantly, and it would only cause trouble for her. Later, Yu met with someone who informed her that they had found Yura's biological father, so her plan could proceed as intended. For Juon, this was an opportunity to be of help. He remembered meeting Yu in the orphanage after the sudden death of his father. After his father passed, several relatives showed up, claiming they wanted to be his guardians to access his inheritance. However, he ultimately ended up in the orphanage, and it was through Yu, who shared his love of painting, that he overcame his loneliness. She became his only friend, and thanks to her, he regained his smile. Later, she was adopted by a wealthy family. Juon also recognized a woman, Joni, the same woman his father had pointed out before he left to meet her, never to return. Years later, Juon met Yu again, but by then she had changed a lot. Her life had become much darker, and he had failed to help her in the past. This time, however, Juon was determined to make things right. On the other side, Johnny continued to push her schemes forward. His husband was taking care of him, but when he woke up and tried to speak, he realized he couldn't. Honye urged him to rest, assuring him that she would handle the company and convene a board meeting to take care of everything. Poor man. Meanwhile, Yu finally visited the sister of the woman who had adopted her, hoping to learn more about her mother. The woman shared many details with Yu. A month before her death, Yu's mother had confided in her that something felt wrong, but they didn't think much of it at the time. However, a week before her death, she received a phone call saying that her daughter had fainted after eating her food, confirming her suspicions that something was wrong. Yu's mother believed that her husband was having an affair with another woman and suspected that this woman had poisoned her daughter. She even feared that she might be next. Initially, the sister hadn't believed any of this, until her sister died a week later. For Yu, everything began to make sense. After her mother's death, Honye brought Yura into their home. As Yu was thinking about this, she noticed a bracelet on the woman's wrist, one she recognized. The woman explained that it was identical to the one her sister had. This triggered Yu's memories of the time when she had been poisoned. She had been with her mother, who had prepared snacks for her. Her mother asked her to wait, and Honye arrived with the same snacks, supposedly sent by her mother. After eating them, Yu had been poisoned. Now she knew the truth. Honye had poisoned her and killed her mother. Seeing Yu's interest in the bracelet, her aunt gifted it to her, asking her to find out the truth. If someone had indeed murdered her mother, Yu needed to uncover whether her mother's death was a choice or if someone had taken her life. Later, Yu discussed everything with Hyun. She now knew that her stepmother was responsible for all of this, and he was aware of it too. Yoon revealed that his father had also died from arsenic poisoning. Hyun Ye had been his father's lover, and after his death, all of his assets had gone to her. Now, Yu understood that this same woman had likely killed her mother, as she had also died from arsenic poisoning. It was highly probable that Honye had orchestrated everything. Grandfather Juon reassured Yu that things would be different now, and that such tragedies wouldn't happen again. However, Yu didn't understand why he said again. That's when Honye revealed the truth to her. He told her that, on the day of the accident, he had planned to tell her everything he had discovered, that Honye was responsible for killing his grandfather, Yu's mother, and Gon's father. He also wanted to tell her that she was the biological daughter of her adoptive father, but he never got the chance, as he died that day, in the same place as Yu. Now, they had returned to the present, a year before the tragic events occurred. Hyun explained that Honye had sent someone to kill him that day, causing his car accident. During the collision, Yu had already been on the ground, victim to another injustice. Now Hyun viewed this second chance as an opportunity to make sure Honye paid for what she had done. Meanwhile, Honye had tracked down Yu's grandfather, the last person she needed to control everything. Knowing that Yu wanted to return to the company, Honye planned to strip her of everything. Later, Yu was caring for her grandfather when Honye unexpectedly appeared. She had finally found the old man she had been searching for all these years. She cruelly told Yu that her grandfather had only a few days left to live, which delighted Honye. With no one left to support her, she taunted Yu, saying she would have no reason to return to the company, as there wouldn't be a position for her. Yu, however, said nothing in response. Satisfied, Onya left, not realizing this was all part of Yu's plan. Her grandfather was still in good health, as Yu had deliberately hidden him from her stepmother to protect him. Hyo also knew that Yeon Jae was the current representative of the company, but that didn't matter. She had her own strategy, and her grandfather would help her. The day of the company's board meeting finally arrived. Honye was thrilled, believing the company would soon be hers. However, a man suddenly appeared and greeted her in an overly familiar way. Honye immediately recognized him. It was Suho, Yura's father. She became enraged, demanding he be removed, but at that moment, Jae Hanan, the largest shareholder and Yu's grandfather, entered the room and allowed Suho to speak. It quickly dawned on Honye that Yu had orchestrated the entire situation. Suho wasted no time asking Honye for an explanation. Why had she never told him that they had a daughter together, Yura? Honye was clearly flustered, refusing to discuss such matters in front of the shareholders. Desperate to avoid further embarrassment, she escorted him out of the meeting. As they entered the elevator, Suho expected answers, but Honye wasn't going to give him any. Just then, Yura entered the elevator. The moment Suho saw her, he was overwhelmed with emotion. "You're my daughter," he exclaimed. For Yura, this revelation was like a bombshell. Shocked and confused, she barely had time to react before Honye quickly whisked Suho away. While they were driving, Don Soy expressed to Honye that although Yura now has a good life, he still wanted to be a part of his daughter's life. DNA tests had confirmed that Yura was his biological child, and he felt they looked alike. However, Honye, who knew him well, was fully aware that he was only after money. She intended to offer him a large sum to ensure he disappeared from their lives for good. Meanwhile, President Unan officially started the shareholders' meeting, and Honye had already arrived. The first item on the agenda was the request to dismiss the current president, the son of Mr. Han, supposedly due to his poor management of the company, which was struggling financially. However, with the largest shareholder present, he suggested that the company should remain as it was, and the motion was rejected, leaving Honye temporarily out of the game. At the same time, Yu arrived at the company and ran into Yura. She informed Yura that she had returned to work. After stepping away to talk privately, Yu asked Yura how she felt upon meeting her biological father. Yura, confused and furious, slapped Yu. But Yu, no longer the same person she once was, slapped her back even harder. Yu told Yura that if she refused to believe her words, she would have no choice but to believe the documents. Yura was devastated upon seeing the papers. Yura then added that this was all the work of Honye, her manipulative and ambitious mother. She warned Yura that it wouldn't be long before she and her mother would be thrown out on the street. Yura still had the strength to fight back, but Yura remained unshaken. She reminded Yura that she had already died once because of her, and now it was time for her to return the favor and make her experience the same hell she had lived through. Later, Honye arrived home feeling utterly defeated, but upon entering, she was met with chaos, and standing in the midst of it all was Miss Kim, the woman Honye had accused of theft and thrown out of the house 20 years ago. Shocked, Honye demanded to know why she was there. Then, to her astonishment, the biggest surprise of all entered. The true owner of the house, Yu's grandfather. He was exhausted by everything Onye had done and told her to leave the house just as she had come, empty-handed. Onye left, but on her way out she encountered Yu, who sarcastically asked, "Leaving already? Did you like my gift?" Yu reminded Honye of the time she had said, "There will be no place left for you to return to." Later, Honye came across Yura once again. In a hotel, Yura demanded answers. She needed to know if it was true that she was the daughter of the man who had come to the office that day, and whether Yor was really the daughter of the man she had always believed to be her father. He asked, "Who told you that?" And, upon hearing Yura's response, confirmed the truth. Yura was at a loss for what to do, but her mother insisted that this was not over yet. Yura had to accomplish something in order to defeat Ihu, and of course, Ju understood. Her mother was asking her to get pregnant by Juk. Yura was slapped by her mother for this suggestion, but immediately apologized. "This woman is crazy," she thought. Her mother urged her not to think about anything else, assuring her that all of this would pass. However, Yura was shattered, realizing that she had been living a lie all this time. In despair, she went to a park and called Cucurucho, wanting to blame him for giving that recording to Ayu. But Cucurucho told her there was no other option and asked her not to call him again. He had once liked her, but now, everything that had happened just made him feel disgusted by her. Yuri couldn't believe it. He couldn't just leave her like that. She clung to him, but before things could escalate further, Seiwi arrived. She grabbed Yura by the hair and chastised her for leaving her behind after all the things she had asked her to do. They started fighting, but it wasn't long before Lo intervened, pushing Yura away and grabbing his sister. They left Yura there, letting her suffer as the worthless rat she was. The next day, Siyu visited Jaimei to understand why she owned 5% of the company's shares, which she had apparently held for the past 10 years. Jaimei understood that Siyu had come to ask for her support, and she was considering it. However, Ayu wanted to know why Jaime hadn't been open with her, asking, "Are you my biological mother?" Jaimei was taken aback and didn't know how to respond. Ihu had already suspected this, as she had learned from her grandfather that Heimi had passed away, but now she knew the truth. Ihu demanded an explanation for why she had abandoned her and why she hadn't told her anything all this time. Jaime apologized, explaining that she had never wanted to abandon her. She thought Ayu had died after her relationship with Ayu's father ended and she was left alone, following the president's orders. The miracle was that she had her baby, but one day a fire broke out in her home. She managed to escape with her baby in her arms, but after 2 days, when she woke up, she learnt that her baby had died and the funeral had already been held. All this time, Jaime had believed her baby was dead until, after her mother's passing, she was told that her baby was alive. Jaime had searched high and low for her and, in the end, discovered that Ihu was her daughter. Ihu wanted to know her true name and her birth date, and Jaime tearfully told her that her name was Li Zhuan and her birthday was May 24th. She apologized once more for everything that had happened.